Once upon a time, deep within an ancient forest cloaked in perpetual fog, lay a forsaken city known as Necropolis. The city was a monument to dread, its very name a whisper of fear among the living. For centuries, it had been abandoned, left to rot under a sky forever cast in twilight. Necropolis was a place where the dead walked, and the living dared not tread. The streets of Necropolis were narrow and twisted, lined with decrepit buildings whose windows were black voids. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and an oppressive silence hung over the city, broken only by the occasional, spine-chilling scream that echoed through the ruins. Shadows moved of their own accord, slithering across the cobblestones like living things. It was said that anyone who ventured into Necropolis would never return, their souls forever claimed by the city. In the heart of Necropolis stood the ancient cathedral, its Gothic spires clawing at the heavens. This was the epicenter of the curse, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead was razor-thin. The cathedral's doors, massive and foreboding, were always ajar, as if inviting the unwary to their doom. Within, the atmosphere was thick with malevolent energy, and the faint sound of ghostly chanting could be heard. Among the countless spirits that roamed Necropolis was Lady Isabella, once a noblewoman who had been poisoned on her wedding night. Her ghost, clad in a tattered and blood-stained wedding dress, wandered the streets, her face twisted in an eternal scream of agony. She was drawn to the cathedral, where she relived her final, excruciating moments over and over again. But the most feared of all was the Shadow King, a tyrant who had ruled Necropolis with a sadistic glee. His spirit, a dark and twisted figure wreathed in shadows, prowled the city, his eyes burning with hatred. He commanded an army of wraiths, spectral soldiers who patrolled the streets, their hollow eyes searching for any living intruders. These wraiths were relentless, their very touch sapping the life from their victims. One stormy night, a young archaeologist named Daniel, driven by the promise of untold riches and forbidden knowledge, found himself at the gates of Necropolis. Ignoring the warnings etched into the stone and the tales of doom whispered by the villagers, he entered the city. Almost immediately, he felt the cold grip of fear around his heart. The shadows seemed to close in around him, and every sound was amplified in the eerie silence. Daniel made his way to the cathedral, drawn by a faint, eerie light that flickered within. As he stepped inside, the doors slammed shut behind him with a deafening boom. The air grew colder, and the ghostly chanting grew louder. Suddenly, he saw her. Lady Isabella, her spectral form floating just above the ground, her eyes hollow and haunted. She reached out to him, her fingers like icy daggers, and whispered of the city's cursed past. Before Daniel could react, the Shadow King appeared, his form a mass of darkness and malevolence. With a voice like the grinding of bones, he commanded his wraiths to seize Daniel. The wraiths emerged from the shadows, their skeletal hands reaching for him. Panic surged through Daniel as he realized he was trapped. In a desperate bid to survive, Daniel remembered the legend of the cursed amulet, said to be the source of Necropolis's torment. Guided by Lady Isabella's mournful whispers, he raced through the cathedral's labyrinthine passages, the wraiths hot on his heels. The walls seemed to close in, and the shadows grew more aggressive, clawing at his skin. At last, deep within the catacombs, Daniel found the amulet, a grotesque, pulsating thing that radiated pure evil. With a surge of adrenaline, he smashed it against the stone floor. A blinding, searing light erupted from the amulet, and the spirits let out a collective, agonized wail.